The Atlanta morning sun beamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Malcolm Devereaux's downtown penthouse office. At 32, Malcolm had built Devereaux Properties from nothing into a real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. Today, dressed in a custom navy suit that highlighted his athletic build, he prepared for what he thought would be just another podcast interview. "We're rolling in 3, 2, 1, said the podcast host Tyler Bennett, a young man with hipster glasses and ambition in his eyes. "Today we're sitting with Atlanta's most eligible bachelor and real estate titan, Malcolm Devereaux. Malcolm, thanks for joining the Success Blueprint." Malcolm flashed his camera-ready smile. "Happy to be here, Tyler. So, you've conquered Atlanta's skyline. What about your personal life? The ladies must be lining up." Malcolm chuckled and leaned back in his chair. "I work 80 hours a week, doesn't leave much time for dating." "But when you do date," Tyler pressed, "what's your type? The people want to know." Something shifted in Malcolm's expression. He'd built his brand on brutal honesty. No filter, no apologies. "Look, I know what I want," Malcolm said with the same confidence he used in boardrooms. "I like my women like I like my buildings. Sleek, uncomplicated, elegant. Curvy black women just aren't my type. Too much attitude, too much drama. I like my women quiet, minimal, no distractions." Tyler's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly recovered. "Well, that's specific." The interview moved on to safer topics. Malcolm's latest development project and his philanthropy efforts. When it wrapped, his assistant, Jessica, waited with his schedule for the day. "That went well," Malcolm said, checking his watch. Jessica hesitated. "Actually, sir, that comment about your dating preferences, it's already getting traction online." Malcolm waved her concern away. "It's just honesty. People respect that." "Maybe check your phone," Jessica suggested quietly. By afternoon, Malcolm's casual comment had exploded into a social media firestorm. The clip had been viewed millions of times. Boycott Devereaux was trending. Women's groups were demanding apologies. Some supporters defended his right to preferences, but the damage was spreading. Malcolm scrolled through his phone, frowning. "This is ridiculous. It was just an honest answer." Jessica looked uncomfortable. "Your mother called. Twice." Malcolm groaned. Vivian Devereaux was the only person who could make him feel like a schoolboy caught misbehaving. "I'll call her later." Also, the Wilson contract is wavering. They're concerned about public image issues. For the first time, Malcolm felt a flicker of worry. Business was business. Bad press could hurt the bottom line. Across town, in a colorful, warm kitchen that smelled of vanilla and spices, Amina Clark was furiously kneading bread dough. "The nerve of that man," she said to her best friend and business partner, Jasmine, who was chopping vegetables. "Did you hear what that Malcolm Devereaux said?" Jasmine nodded. "It's all over my feed. Curvy black women aren't my type. Sounds as if we're all just waiting for his approval." Amina, with her glorious crown of natural hair and curves that she'd learned to love after years of society telling her not to, slammed the dough onto the counter. "Men like him think they can just say whatever they want because they have money," Amina said, her dark eyes flashing. "But you know what? His loss. I wouldn't date a shallow man like that if he begged me." Jasmine grinned. "Tell him, girl." Amina wiped flour from her hands and checked her phone. At 28, she had built Divine Taste, her catering company, through years of hard work after culinary school. Today, she created masterpieces for Atlanta's elite, bringing her grandmother's recipes to life with modern twists. "Oh no," Amina groaned, staring at her screen. "What's wrong?" Jasmine asked. "Remember that big birthday dinner I booked for Saturday? The one paying double our usual rate? Yeah? It's for Vivian Devereaux." Jasmine's mouth fell open. "As in, Malcolm Devereaux's mother," Amina confirmed, closing her eyes. "I can't believe I'm catering for the family of that. Cancel it," Jasmine suggested. Amina was tempted, but she thought about the staff she'd hired for the event, the supplies already ordered, the deposit already spent. "I can't. Business is business. Besides," she added with determined eyes, "I refuse to let a man like Malcolm Devereaux affect my business or my peace." "You think he'll be there?" "God, I hope not," Amina sighed. "But if he is, I'll be nothing but professional. I have nothing to prove to him." But as she returned to her bread, Amina couldn't help feeling a knot in her stomach. She'd spent years building her confidence, embracing her body, loving her rich, dark skin and the curves she'd inherited from her mother's side. Men like Malcolm Devereaux brought back old insecurities she thought she'd buried. Saturday evening arrived, and Amina's team transformed the Devereaux mansion's dining room into an elegant space with soft lighting and tasteful floral arrangements. Amina had chosen a simple but flattering black dress that complemented her figure. with her hair shaped into a perfect halo around her face. "The dessert table looks amazing," her assistant Trey whispered as they put final touches on the display. Amina nodded, surveying her work with pride. The centerpiece was her signature peach cobbler, her grandmother's recipe that had earned her first catering job 5 years ago. A tall, elegant, older woman entered the room. "You must be Amina Clark," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Vivian Devereaux. Everything looks wonderful." Amina smiled, instantly warming to Malcolm's mother. "Thank you, Mrs. Devereaux. Happy birthday." "Please, call me Vivian," she insisted. "Now, I want to hear about every dish. My friends are food critics in their own minds." As Vivian examined the menu, the doorbell rang. Guests began arriving, Atlanta's wealthy and connected, dressed in designer clothes and dripping with jewelry. Amina stayed in the background, directing her staff and making sure everything was perfect. Then she heard his voice. "Mother, happy birthday." Malcolm Devereaux entered the dining room carrying a large gift box. He kissed his mother's cheek, then froze as his eyes landed on Amina. For a moment, neither moved. Malcolm had never seen a woman who commanded attention so effortlessly without seeming to try. Her skin glowed in the soft light, and her quiet confidence as she directed her staff was magnetic. Vivian noticed her son's sudden silence. "Malcolm, this is Amina Clark, our caterer tonight. Her food is divine." Malcolm extended his hand automatically. "Pleasure to meet you." Amina hesitated for just a second before shaking his hand professionally. "Mr. Devereaux." Their eyes met, and Malcolm felt something unfamiliar, a sense that this woman saw right through him. There was no girlish flirtation, no effort to impress him, just calm dignity. "I should check on the main course," Amina said, excusing herself. Malcolm watched her walk away, confused by his reaction to her. He found himself following her to the kitchen. "Ms. Clark," he called. Amina turned, keeping her expression neutral despite her racing heart. Up close, Malcolm was even more handsome than his magazine covers suggested, tall with perfect teeth and eyes that probably got him whatever he wanted. "The food looks incredible," he said. "Do you have your own restaurant?" "Just my catering company," she replied. "Divine taste." Malcolm nodded, suddenly feeling awkward, a sensation he wasn't used to. "Well, I'm impressed. Mother is very particular." "Thank you." Amina's response was polite but distant. Malcolm found himself wanting to keep the conversation going. "Have we met before? You seem familiar." Amina's expression cooled slightly. "I don't think so, Mr. Devereaux. I'm probably not your type." Before he could respond, she turned back to her work, leaving Malcolm standing there with the uncomfortable feeling that she knew exactly who he was and what he had said. Dinner was served, and Malcolm couldn't stop watching Amina as she moved around the room with grace, explaining each dish to appreciative guests. Her voice was melodic, her smile genuine when she received compliments. "Your caterer is lovely," Malcolm's mother said quietly beside him. "She seems confident," Malcolm replied. Vivian gave him a knowing look. "And beautiful. Not your usual type, though, is it?" Malcolm shifted uncomfortably. "You saw the interview." "Everyone saw the interview, Malcolm," Vivian said, disappointment evident in her voice. "Not your finest moment." Before Malcolm could defend himself, his phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "Wilson contract cancelled, citing values mismatch. Need damage control ASAP." Malcolm excused himself and stepped onto the terrace, loosening his tie as stress tightened his chest. The Wilson contract was worth millions. This was getting serious. From the doorway, Amina watched him, surprised to feel a flicker of curiosity beneath her dislike. The man looked genuinely troubled. "Dessert is served," she announced, breaking his thoughts. Malcolm turned, composing himself. "Thank you. I'll be right in." As the evening wound down and guests departed, Malcolm found himself lingering in the kitchen doorway, watching Amina direct her team's cleanup with the same quiet authority she'd shown all evening. "Miss Clark," he said, approaching her, "I wanted to thank you personally. Mother hasn't stopped raving about the food, especially that peach cobbler." Amina allowed herself a small smile. "That's my grandmother's recipe. I'm glad she enjoyed it." "I was wondering," Malcolm said, surprised by his own nervousness, "if I could get your card for future events." Amina looked at him steadily, then reached into her pocket and handed him a business card. "Of course. Business is business." Their fingers touched briefly as he took the card, and Malcolm felt that unfamiliar sensation again, like he was being seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. "It was nice meeting you, Mr. Devereaux," she said, her voice giving away nothing of her feelings. "Malcolm," he corrected. "Please call me Malcolm." Amina nodded but didn't reciprocate the invitation to use her first name. As she turned to continue her work, Malcolm felt dismissed in a way he couldn't remember feeling since, well, ever. Later that night, as Amina drove home, she gripped the steering wheel tightly, angry at herself for the unwelcome flutter she'd felt when Malcolm looked at her. "He's exactly the kind of man you promised yourself to avoid," she muttered. Meanwhile, Malcolm sat in his penthouse, turning Amina's business card over in his hands, replaying their brief interactions. Too much attitude, too much drama, he had said on that podcast. But Amina Clark had been the picture of calm professionalism, and yet somehow she had shaken him more than any woman he could remember. He picked up his phone and did something he rarely did. He searched for her company online. Divine Taste's Instagram page appeared, filled with beautiful food photos and occasional pictures of Amina at events. In one photo, she was laughing with her team, radiant and uninhibited. Malcolm stared at the image, feeling something crack in the carefully constructed world he'd built around himself. For the first time, he wondered if everything he thought he knew about what he wanted was wrong. His phone buzzed again with another message from Jessica. "PR team has crisis meeting scheduled for 7 a.m. 3 more clients threatening to pull out." Malcolm put the phone down and looked back at Amina's smiling face on his screen. His world was starting to unravel, and somehow he had a feeling that Amina Clark was going to be right in the middle of whatever came next. Monday morning hit Malcolm Devereux like a freight train. He sat at the head of his conference table, surrounded by his anxious PR team and Jessica, who couldn't stop checking her buzzing phone. "The numbers are bad, Malcolm," said Diane, his PR director. "We've lost 3 major contracts. Your comments have gone beyond social media outrage. They're affecting the bottom line." Malcolm rubbed his temples. It was one comment in a casual interview. "A comment that insulted a huge demographic of women," Diane pointed out. "Women who work for your clients, who are your clients, or who influence your clients." Jessica slid a tablet across the table. "The latest cancellation just came in. Horizon Group. That's 5 million gone." Malcolm stared at the email, the reality finally sinking in. This wasn't going away. "What do you suggest?" he asked Diane. "A public apology first and foremost. We draft something sincere but carefully worded." "I don't do fake apologies," Malcolm interrupted. Diane raised an eyebrow. "Is it fake if you're actually sorry?" Malcolm fell silent. Was he sorry? He'd never thought twice about his dating preferences before. He dated who he was attracted to, usually slim, quiet women who didn't challenge him. Women his Aunt Eloise had always approved of. "Also," Diane continued, "we need to show, not just tell. Actions speak louder than words. We should look at partnering with some women's organizations, maybe doing a special project that benefits black women entrepreneurs." Malcolm's mind immediately went to Amina Clark. He remembered the pride in her eyes when she spoke about her catering company. "I might have an idea," he said slowly. "There's this catering company, Divine Taste. Woman-owned, black-owned. What if we hired them for all our corporate events for the next year? That's exposure and revenue for them. Good PR for us." Diane nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of move we need. Personal, specific, and beneficial to a black woman entrepreneur." "It might seem opportunistic," Jessica warned. "Not if we do it right," Diane countered. "Malcolm, can you reach out to the owner personally? Make it feel genuine." Malcolm nodded, already reaching for his phone where he'd saved Amina's contact information. "I'll take care of it." At Divine Taste's kitchen headquarters, Amina was testing a new recipe when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, but business instinct made her answer. "Divine Taste, this is Amina." "Ms. Clark, this is Malcolm Devereux." Amina nearly dropped her spoon. She recovered quickly, keeping her voice professional. "Mr. Devereux, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to discuss a business opportunity. My company hosts numerous corporate events throughout the year, and after experiencing your exceptional work at my mother's birthday, I'd like to offer Divine Taste an exclusive contract for all Devereux Properties events for the next 12 months. Amina frowned, suspicion immediately rising. "That's quite an offer. Why now?" There was a pause on the line. "Your work speaks for itself, and I believe in supporting local businesses." "Does this have anything to do with your current PR situation?" Amina asked bluntly. Another pause, longer this time. "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Are you available for lunch today?" Amina should have said no. Everything in her head told her to decline. But curiosity, and yes, a tiny bit of attraction she hated to admit, made her agree. "Fine. There's a cafe called Harvest on Peachtree Street. 1 o'clock. I'll be there, Malcolm said, sounding genuinely pleased. After hanging up, Amina immediately called Jasmine. Girl, you will not believe who just called me, she began. Jasmine listened to the story, then whistled. He's definitely trying to use you for damage control. I know, Amina agreed, and I'm going to tell him exactly that. So why are you going at all? Jasmine asked knowingly. Amina sighed. Because it's a huge contract, Jas, and because he's fine and you want another look, Jasmine finished, laughing. I hate that you know me so well, Amina grumbled. But don't worry, I'm not falling for a man like Malcolm Devereux. I just want to hear what he has to say, then turn him down to his face. Harvest was a small farm-to-table cafe with large windows and rustic wooden tables. Amina arrived 15 minutes early, wearing a colorful wrap dress that complemented her curves. She chose a table by the window and ordered a lemon water while she waited. Malcolm arrived precisely at 1, dressed in a more casual outfit than she'd seen at the party, dark jeans and a crisp white button-down with the sleeves rolled up. Even dressed down, he exuded wealth and privilege. Ms. Clark, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for meeting me. Amina shook his hand briefly. Mr. Devereux. Malcolm, please, he reminded her as he sat down. Let's get straight to the point, Malcolm, Amina said, folding her hands on the table. This sudden interest in my company, it's about damage control, isn't it? Malcolm looked surprised, then gave a small reluctant smile. You don't waste time. I can't afford to. Malcolm studied her for a moment, then nodded. Yes, my PR team suggested partnering with a black woman-owned business would help repair some damage. But I personally chose your company because your food was exceptional. Business is business, after all. Amina felt a strange mix of appreciation for his honesty and irritation at his presumption. So, I'm supposed to be your token black woman to show you're not prejudiced? Malcolm winced. That's not— Oh, I know what it is, Amina interrupted. And let me be clear, I don't date men who only see value after public shame. Malcolm's eyes widened slightly, and Amina immediately regretted her choice of words. She hadn't meant to imply dating was even on the table. I didn't ask you on a date, Malcolm said, recovering quickly. This is a business proposition. Amina felt her cheeks warm. Of course, and as a business proposition I'm declining. I don't want to be anyone's PR strategy. She started to gather her purse, but Malcolm reached across the table, not touching her but making a staying gesture. Wait. Please, you're right to be suspicious, but there's more to this than PR. Something in his voice made Amina pause. I'm listening. Malcolm took a deep breath. That podcast comment. I've been thinking about it non-stop, why I said it, where it came from. He looked directly into her eyes. I've never questioned my preferences before, but meeting you made me realize I've been operating on autopilot, dating women my aunt approved of, never really choosing for myself. Amina sat back, surprised by his candor. Your aunt? A shadow crossed Malcolm's face. My mother's sister. She raised me after my mother had to leave when I was 8. Business trips, she said. But really, she was battling depression after my father left. Aunt Eloise had very specific ideas about the right kind of women for a Devereux man. Despite herself, Amina felt a flicker of curiosity. And what kind was that? Quiet, agreeable, sophisticated in a very conventional way. Always thin, usually white or very light-skinned, women who would elevate the family image. Malcolm's voice had a bitter edge. I never questioned it until now. The waiter approached, and they ordered quickly. A Greek salad for Amina, a club sandwich for Malcolm. That doesn't excuse what you said, Amina pointed out when they were alone again. No, it doesn't, Malcolm agreed. And I am sorry, not just because it hurt my business, but because it was wrong. I judged women I'd never even met. Amina studied him, trying to gauge his sincerity. So this contract offer is partly PR, yes, Malcolm admitted, but it's also me trying to do better. Your company deserves the exposure and the business, and selfishly, I'd like to get to know you better. Professionally, he added quickly. Amina tapped her fingers on the table, considering. The contract would be huge for Divine Taste, the kind of opportunity that could take her business to the next level. But at what cost? I'll think about it, she finally said. Send me the contract details and I'll review them with my lawyer. Malcolm looked relieved. Thank you. That's all I ask. Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. The Atlanta food scene, Amina's culinary training, Malcolm's latest building restoration project. Despite her determination to keep her guard up, Amina found herself enjoying the conversation. Malcolm was intelligent and, when he wasn't being defensive, actually listened to what she had to say. As lunch ended, Malcolm paid the bill despite Amina's protest. "Consider it an apology for wasting your time if you decide not to take the contract," he said. Outside the cafe, they paused awkwardly. "I'll have Jessica email you the contract today," Malcolm said. Amina nodded. "I'll let you know my decision by the end of the week." As she turned to leave, Malcolm called after her. "Amina?" She looked back, surprised by his use of her first name. "Thank you for being honest with me. Not many people are these days." Amina offered a small smile. "I don't know any other way to be." Back at her kitchen, Amina found Jasmine waiting expectantly. "Well, how did the lunch with Mr. Not My Type go?" Jasmine asked. Amina set down her purse and sighed. "Confusing. He admitted the contract offer was partly PR, but he seemed, I don't know, genuinely self-reflective. He told me about his aunt who raised him with these narrow beauty standards." The old blame it on my upbringing excuse," Jasmine said skeptically. "No, it wasn't like that. He took responsibility." Amina started prepping vegetables for that evening's order, chopping with perhaps more force than necessary. "And the contract really would be amazing for us. A full year of exclusive corporate events for Devereux Properties. That's steady income, exposure to high-end clients." "But," Jasmine prompted. "But I don't want to be used as his redemption story," Amina said firmly. "The curvy black woman who helped him see the error of his ways. So what are you going to do?" Amina set down her knife. "I don't know yet." Later that evening, the contract arrived in Amina's email. The terms were even more generous than Malcolm had suggested: exclusive catering rights to all Devereux Properties events, a substantial retainer, and flexible scheduling that would still allow Divine Taste to serve other clients. "This is an incredible offer," her lawyer said when she forwarded it to him. "I don't see any catches or hidden clauses." Amina was still deliberating when her phone rang again. This time, it was Vivian Devereux. "Amina, dear, I hope I'm not interrupting," Vivian said warmly. "Not at all, Mrs. Devereux. What can I do for you?" "I'm hosting a charity gala for the Children's Hospital next Saturday, and my caterer just cancelled. I immediately thought of you. I know it's short notice." "I'd be happy to help," Amina said, genuinely liking Malcolm's mother. "Wonderful. And please, I told you to call me Vivian." She paused. "I understand my son reached out to you about some business arrangement." Amina tensed. "Yes, he did. I want you to know that was his idea, not mine," Vivian said, "though I fully support it. Malcolm is, well, he's going through some changes. That awful interview made him question things he's never questioned before." "I see," Amina said neutrally. "He told me about your lunch today," Vivian continued. "He was impressed by your honesty." "I just said what I thought." "That's refreshing for him. Most people tell Malcolm what they think he wants to hear." Vivian's voice softened. "Whatever you decide about the contract, I hope you'll come by the house sometime. I'd love to hear more about your grandmother's recipes." After hanging up, Amina felt even more confused. She'd expected to dislike everything about Malcolm Devereux and his world, but his mother was genuinely lovely, and Malcolm himself was complicated. The next morning, Amina called Malcolm's office. "Mr. Devereux, please," she said to the receptionist. "May I ask who's calling?" "Amina Clark from Divine Taste." She was put through immediately. "Amina," Malcolm said, sounding pleased. "Have you made a decision?" "I have conditions," Amina said firmly. "First, there will be no publicity about this partnership without my approval. No press releases announcing how Devereux Properties is supporting a black-owned business." "Understood," Malcolm said. "Second, I want to work directly with you on the menu planning for these events. Not your assistant, not your event coordinator. You." There was a pause. "That's unusual, but okay. May I ask why?" "Because if this is really about you wanting to change, to see value in women like me, then you need to actually spend time with women like me. In a professional capacity," she added quickly. "That makes sense," Malcolm agreed. "Anything else?" "Yes. Your mother invited me to cater her charity gala on Saturday. If you're serious about this partnership, you'll be there to help. I'm short-staffed, and I want to see if you're willing to put in actual work, not just write checks." This time the pause was longer. "You want me to, work as catering staff? Problem?" Amina challenged. She could almost hear Malcolm's internal struggle over the phone. Finally, he said, "What time should I arrive?" Amina smiled, surprised he'd agreed. 4 o'clock? Wear black pants and a white shirt and comfortable shoes. "I'll be there," Malcolm promised. After hanging up, Amina called Jasmine. "You won't believe what just happened. I'm taking the Devereaux contract, but with conditions, and Malcolm Devereaux is going to be serving appetizers at his mother's charity gala on Saturday. Jasmine burst out laughing. Girl, you are playing with fire. No, Amina insisted. I'm making sure he's serious about changing, not just using me for PR, and it's strictly professional. But as she returned to her work, Amina couldn't ignore the flutter of anticipation she felt at the thought of seeing Malcolm again, this time on her terms. Saturday arrived and Amina was busy setting up in Vivian Devereaux's kitchen when Malcolm appeared at exactly 4 o'clock. He wore crisp black pants, a white button-down, and looked decidedly out of place with a tentative expression she'd never seen on his confident face. Reporting for duty, he said, attempting humor. Amina handed him an apron. First lesson in catering. Everything needs to be prepped before guests arrive. You're on vegetable duty. For the next hour, Amina put Malcolm to work chopping vegetables, arranging appetizer platters, and learning the proper way to serve champagne. To her surprise, he didn't complain once, following her instructions with the same focus he probably gave to million-dollar deals. You're a fast learner, she admitted, as they worked side by side. I've always been good with my hands, Malcolm replied, then seemed to realize how that sounded. I know what you meant, Amina said, fighting a smile. As they worked, Malcolm opened up more about his childhood, his mother's absence, his strict aunt's rules, the pressure to uphold the Devereaux name even before he had rebuilt the family fortune. Aunt Eloise had a fit when I brought home a girl named Shanice in 10th grade, he recalled. She was smart, pretty, wanted to be a doctor, but Aunt Eloise said she wasn't Devereaux material. After that, I just stopped bringing home girls she wouldn't approve of. And your mother never stepped in? Amina asked. Malcolm's expression darkened. She wasn't around much until I was in college. By then, my dating patterns were set. But you're a grown man now, Amina pointed out. You make your own choices. Yes, Malcolm agreed, looking at her intently. I'm starting to realize that. The moment was interrupted by Vivian entering the kitchen. Everything smells wonderful. Malcolm, darling, what are you doing in an apron? Learning how the other half lives, mother, Malcolm said with a wry smile. Amina's teaching me the catering business. Vivian's eyes moved between them, a knowing look crossing her face. Well, I think that's wonderful. Amina, you're a miracle worker if you've got my son doing manual labor. He's actually not bad, Amina admitted. For a beginner. The gala began, and Malcolm surprised Amina again by staying to help throughout the evening. He served appetizers, cleared plates, and even washed dishes when one of her staff had to leave early with a migraine. By the end of the night, when the last guest had departed, Amina found Malcolm in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, helping with final cleanup. You didn't have to stay this long, she said, joining him at the sink. I wanted to, he replied simply. I've never seen an event from this side before. It's humbling. Amina handed him a towel to dry his hands. Well, thank you. You were actually helpful. High praise indeed, Malcolm said with a smile that transformed his usually serious face. They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes. So, Malcolm finally said, do I pass your test? Will you accept the contract? Amina considered him. Yes, I will, but this partnership is strictly professional. I meant what I said at lunch the other day, about not dating men who only see value after public shame. Malcolm quoted her words exactly. Amina nodded, embarrassed but standing firm. I understand, Malcolm said, but I hope we can at least be friends. I find I value your perspective. Friends, Amina agreed cautiously. I can work with that. As they finished cleaning, Vivian reappeared. Amina, everyone raved about the food. The hospital director wants your information for their next fundraiser. That's wonderful, Amina said, pleased. And Malcolm, Vivian continued, Senator Harris was asking about that downtown revitalization project. He seemed very interested after I mentioned your new diversity initiatives. Malcolm and Amina exchanged a look. What diversity initiatives? Malcolm asked. Vivian waved her hand vaguely. Oh, you know, your partnership with Divine Taste, your plans to work with more minority-owned businesses. I might have embellished a bit, but it's for a good cause. After Vivian left, Malcolm sighed. Mother means well, but now I have to create diversity initiatives from scratch. Actually, Amina said slowly, I might have some ideas about that. There are several black-owned businesses in my network that could use the kind of boost Devereaux Properties could provide. Malcolm looked at her with genuine interest. I'd like to hear more. Maybe over dinner sometime, as friends, he added quickly. Amina hesitated, then nodded. As friends, I know a great Ethiopian place that could use the exposure. It's a date, Malcolm said. then caught himself. I mean a friend date, a business meeting between friends. Amina laughed despite herself. Good night, Malcolm. As she drove home that night, Amina couldn't deny that something had shifted. Malcolm Devereux was not the simple villain she'd made him out to be after hearing that podcast. He was a product of his upbringing. Yes, but he was also showing a willingness to change, to question his assumptions. It was strictly professional, she reminded herself firmly, just business. But when her phone buzzed with a text from Malcolm, "Thank you for tonight. I learned a lot. Looking forward to Ethiopian food and diversity initiatives," she couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. Meanwhile, across town, Malcolm's PR director Diane was drafting a proposal. The Devereux Diversity Initiative, the header read. Phase 1, Partnership with Divine Taste Catering. And at the bottom a handwritten note, Potential personal angle, MDev showing interest in owner A. Clark, could be useful for public image rehabilitation. The note sat on Diane's desk, waiting for Monday morning's meeting with Malcolm, a ticking time bomb that threatened to destroy whatever fragile connection was forming between Malcolm and Amina. Over the next 3 weeks, Malcolm and Amina fell into an unexpected rhythm. What had started as a business arrangement gradually shifted into something neither of them had anticipated. Their first official meeting to discuss the upcoming corporate event was at Malcolm's downtown office. Amina arrived with her portfolio and professional demeanor firmly in place. "I've prepared 3 different menu options," she said, spreading her materials across the conference table. Malcolm leaned forward, genuinely interested. "The last option with the fusion dishes sounds perfect. Our clients will love something innovative." "That's my favorite too," Amina admitted. "It combines my grandmother's southern recipes with modern techniques I learned in culinary school." Their eyes met briefly, and Amina quickly looked back down at her notes. "The Ethiopian restaurant," Malcolm said suddenly. "We never made it there. Are you free Friday evening for our discussion about diversity initiatives?" he added quickly. Amina hesitated, then nodded. "Friday works. 7 o'clock? I'll pick you up," Malcolm offered. "I'll meet you there," Amina countered with a small smile. "Strictly professional, remember?" Malcolm nodded, but the disappointment in his eyes was unmistakable. Friday evening at Addis Ethiopian restaurant marked a turning point. The small, family-owned establishment was warm and inviting, with traditional music playing softly in the background. They sat at a low table with a large shared platter between them. "So, these diversity initiatives," Amina began, "all business." But as the evening progressed, and they shared the traditional meal, eating with their hands from the same platter, the conversation drifted from business to personal. Malcolm listened with genuine interest as Amina talked about her journey to starting Divine Taste, the obstacles she'd faced as a black woman entrepreneur, and her dreams for the future. "I want to open a cooking school someday," she confessed, "for kids from underprivileged neighborhoods. Food changed my life. It could change theirs too." "That's amazing," Malcolm said sincerely. "If you ever need a space for it, I might have some properties that would work." Amina raised an eyebrow. "Are you offering me a business deal, Mr. Devereux?" "No," Malcolm said softly. "I'm offering to help a friend." The word hung between them. Friend. Was that really what this was? As they walked to their cars after dinner, Malcolm stopped under a streetlight. "Amina, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "These past weeks working with you, I've never met anyone like you. You're honest, you're hard-working, you don't let me get away with anything." He took a deep breath. "That comment I made on the podcast, I was wrong, so wrong. And not just because it hurt my business." Amina crossed her arms, uncertain where this was going. "Malcolm, please, let me finish. I've been on autopilot my whole life, following my aunt's rules, building this empire but never questioning what I really wanted." His eyes were intense in the lamplight. "Meeting you has made me question everything, and I can't pretend this is just business anymore." Amina felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'd like to take you on a real date, not as business partners or friends. A real date." Amina's mind raced. She'd promised herself she wouldn't fall for him, wouldn't be his redemption story. But the man standing before her now seemed genuinely changed from the arrogant figure who'd made that thoughtless comment weeks ago. "I need time to think," she finally said. Malcolm nodded, respect in his eyes. "Take all the time you need, I'm not going anywhere." Monday morning brought Amina back to Malcolm's office for their scheduled meeting about the upcoming corporate event. She'd spent the weekend wrestling with her feelings, torn between growing attraction and lingering distrust. As she approached the reception desk, she heard Malcolm's PR director, Diane, talking to someone in the adjacent conference room. The door was slightly ajar. "The diversity initiative is working brilliantly," Diane was saying. "The Wilson contract is back on the table, and we've had 3 new investors reach out since we announced the partnership with Divine Taste." "And what about this personal angle?" a male voice asked. "Is there something developing between Malcolm and the catering woman?" Amina froze, her hand on the door handle. "Malcolm hasn't confirmed anything, but Jessica says he's definitely interested. If they start dating, it's perfect for our narrative. Malcolm Devereaux reformed and in a relationship with a successful black entrepreneur. It completely erases that podcast disaster. Should we leak something to the press? Maybe arrange for a photographer next time they're out together?" "Not yet," Diane cautioned. "Malcolm's touchy about this one. We need to let it develop naturally, then suggest publicity as a business strategy. The millionaire falls for the woman he once rejected angle will be irresistible." Amina felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. All the air left her lungs as the truth crashed down on her. She'd been right from the beginning. She was just a PR strategy, a token black woman to repair Malcolm's image. She backed away from the door, bumping into a plant stand. The noise alerted the people in the conference room. "Hello? Is someone there?" Diane called. Amina turned and hurried toward the elevator, tears burning her eyes. She jabbed the button repeatedly, desperate to escape before anyone saw her. The elevator doors opened, revealing Malcolm. His face lit up when he saw her, then quickly fell as he registered her expression. "Amina, what's wrong?" She stepped into the elevator, keeping her eyes down. "I need to go." Malcolm put a hand on the door to stop it from closing. "What happened? Talk to me." "I heard your PR team," Amina said, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. "The personal angle, using our, whatever this is, to rehabilitate your image. The millionaire falls for the woman he once rejected. That's what they're calling it." Malcolm's face drained of color. "Amina, I had no idea." "Save it," she cut him off. "I knew from the beginning this was all about PR. I just started to believe. It doesn't matter what I believed. I'm canceling the contract. Find another token black woman to fix your reputation." "Amina, please." She pushed his hand away from the elevator door. "Don't contact me again." The doors closed on Malcolm's stricken face, and Amina let the tears fall freely as the elevator descended. She'd been a fool to think someone like Malcolm Devereaux could change, could see her as anything more than a convenient solution to his image problem. Malcolm stood frozen for a moment, then turned and stormed toward the conference room where he could hear Diane still talking. "Diane?" he said, his voice deadly quiet as he entered. "What exactly have you been planning regarding Amina Clark?" Diane looked up, surprised. "Malcolm, we were just discussing the diversity initiative." "Don't lie to me," Malcolm interrupted. "Amina just left here in tears because she overheard you discussing how to use our relationship for publicity. A relationship, I might add, that barely exists and is completely private." The others in the room shifted uncomfortably. "It was just strategy talk," Diane defended. "Your image needs—" "My image?" Malcolm laughed bitterly. "My image just cost me the one genuine connection I've made in years. Cancel the PR campaign. All of it." "Malcolm, be reasonable," Diane protested. "We've invested—" "I don't care what you've invested. This ends now." Malcolm turned to leave, then paused. "And Diane? You're fired." Back in his office, Malcolm tried calling Amina repeatedly, but his calls went straight to voicemail. He sent text after text, trying to explain, to apologize, but received no response. Jessica appeared in his doorway, looking concerned. "Malcolm, you have the Wilson meeting in 20 minutes. "Cancel it," Malcolm said, grabbing his jacket. "Cancel everything today." "But, Jessica, I just lost something more important than any contract. I need to fix this." At Divine Taste, Amina threw herself into work, kneading bread dough with furious energy, while Jasmine watched with concern. "So that's it? You're just going to cancel the biggest contract we've ever had?" "Yes," Amina said firmly. "I won't be anyone's PR stunt." "Did Malcolm actually say that's what you were to him?" Amina paused. "No, but his team isn't him," Jasmine pointed out. "Shouldn't you at least hear his side?" "Whose side are you on?" Amina demanded. "Yours, always," Jasmine assured her. "But I've seen how you light up when you talk about him. That's not nothing, Mina." The kitchen door burst open, and one of their assistants rushed in. "Amina, there's someone here to see you." Amina wiped her hands on her apron. "Tell Malcolm Devereaux I'm not available." "It's not Mr. Devereaux," the assistant said. "It's his mother." Moments later, Vivian Devereaux swept into the kitchen, elegant as always in a simple blue dress. "Amina, dear, I hope I'm not interrupting. Mrs. Devereux. Vivian, this isn't a good time. I know, Vivian said gently. Malcolm called me. He's beside himself. Amina turned back to her dough. I'm not interested in hearing his excuses. No excuses, Vivian agreed, surprising Amina. What his PR team was planning was horrible. Using your relationship for publicity is inexcusable. Amina looked up. Then why are you here? Because my son has fired his PR director, cancelled the entire campaign, and is currently sitting in his car outside your building, afraid to come in because he thinks you hate him. Vivian's eyes were kind but direct. And because I've never seen him like this over any woman before. Amina didn't know what to say. Malcolm grew up with terrible examples of love, Vivian continued, her voice soft with regret. His father used me and left when things got hard. I was too broken to be there for him. And Eloise, she shook her head. My sister meant well, but she taught Malcolm that appearances matter more than feelings. That doesn't excuse... No, it doesn't, Vivian agreed. Nothing excuses hurtful words or actions, but it might help explain why change is so hard for him and why meeting you has shaken his world so completely. She took Amina's flower-covered hands in hers. He's never fired anyone over a woman before, never cancelled meetings for personal reasons, never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. Amina felt her resolve weakening. I don't know, Vivian. Just talk to him, Vivian urged. That's all I ask. If you still want nothing to do with him afterward, I'll make sure he respects that. After Vivian left, Amina stood conflicted, flour still dusting her hands. Part of her wanted to hold on to her anger, to protect herself from being hurt again. But another part remembered the genuine regret in Malcolm's eyes in the elevator, the way he'd worked alongside her staff without complaint, the conversations that had nothing to do with business or image. Go, Jasmine said, taking the dough from her. At least hear what he has to say. Outside, Malcolm's black Mercedes was parked across the street. As Amina approached, he got out, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. Tie loosened, hair mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. Amina, he said, relief and fear mingling in his voice. Thank you for coming out. Your mother is very persuasive, Amina said, keeping her distance. She always has been. Malcolm took a deep breath. I'm so sorry about what you heard. I had no idea they were planning that. I would never use you or what's happening between us for publicity. What is happening between us, Malcolm? Amina challenged. Because from where I stand, it looks like I'm just part of your redemption story. The curvy black woman who helped the millionaire see the error of his ways. Great for your image, isn't it? Malcolm flinched, as if she'd slapped him. Is that really what you think of me? After everything? I don't know what to think anymore, Amina admitted. I was starting to believe you'd changed, that you saw me as a person, not a type. But then I heard your team. I fired Diane, Malcolm interrupted. Cancelled the whole PR campaign. I don't care about my image anymore, Amina. I care about you. The raw honesty in his voice made Amina pause. Look, I know I don't deserve another chance, Malcolm continued. I said something horrible on that podcast. I've spent my life judging women based on narrow standards that were never even my own. And yes, at first, hiring Divine Taste was about damage control. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. But somewhere between your mother's birthday dinner and you making me serve appetizers at the charity gala, everything changed. You changed me. I don't want that responsibility, Amina said quietly. I'm not here to fix you, Malcolm. I know. And that's not what I'm asking. Malcolm ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm doing this all wrong. What I'm trying to say is, I was lost before I met you, going through motions, building an empire, but never questioning why or what for. You woke me up, Amina. Not because you're a curvy black woman, but because you're you, honest, passionate, unwilling to accept anything less than what you deserve. Despite herself, Amina felt tears forming. Pretty words, Malcolm. But how do I know they're real? Because I've never said them to anyone before, he said simply. Because I'm standing here, not caring who sees the great Malcolm Devereux begging for forgiveness on a public street. Because for the first time in my life, I'm terrified of losing someone. A tear slipped down Amina's cheek. I trusted you. I was starting to feel something, Malcolm finished softly. Because I am. Something I've never felt before. Something that has nothing to do with business or image or what anyone else thinks. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently wiped the tear from her cheek. The tenderness of the gesture nearly undid her. I don't know if I can trust this, Amina whispered. Then let me earn your trust back, Malcolm said. One day at a time. No publicity, no business deals. No PR strategies. Just us, getting to know each other for real. Amina looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deception, but all she saw was vulnerability and hope. One condition, she finally said. Anything. We start over. Clean slate. No contracts, no catering your events. If we're going to do this, we do it separate from business. Malcolm nodded. Agreed, although I will miss your peach cobbler at my events. A small smile tugged at Amina's lips. I never said I was cancelling the contract. Divine Taste can still cater your events. I'll just send Jasmine to handle them. So, does this mean you'll give me another chance? Malcolm asked, hope clear in his voice. Amina took a deep breath. It means I'll have dinner with you tonight. We'll see about the rest. Malcolm's face broke into a genuine smile, not the polished one he used for business, but something real and a little awkward. I'll take it. 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, Amina confirmed. And Malcolm? This time you can pick me up. Sir Samaika. That evening, Malcolm arrived exactly on time, carrying a small wrapped package. He'd changed into casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down, as if to emphasize this wasn't business. Amina, dressed in a flowing sundress that complemented her curves, eyed the package suspiciously. What's that? A peace offering, Malcolm said, handing it to her. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound recipe book with blank pages, the words, Clark Family Recipes, embossed on the cover. For your grandmother's recipes, Malcolm explained. You mentioned you've been keeping them on note cards. Amina ran her fingers over the soft leather, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Thank you. This is perfect. Their dinner at a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood was different from any of their previous meetings. With business off the table, they talked about everything else. Childhood memories, favorite books, dreams for the future. Malcolm told her about his father's abandonment, his mother's depression, and his own determination never to be financially vulnerable. Money became safety for me, he admitted, and somewhere along the way, I forgot about everything else that matters. Amina shared her own struggles, losing her grandmother who had raised her, fighting to be taken seriously as a chef in a male-dominated industry, learning to love herself in a world that often told women who looked like her that they weren't enough. That's why your podcast comment hit so hard, she explained. It wasn't just words. It was something I've heard in different ways my whole life. Malcolm reached across the table and took her hand. I'm so sorry, Amina. I wish I could take it back. You can't, she said honestly. But what matters is what you do going forward. After dinner, they walked along the Atlanta Beltline, the city lights twinkling around them. When Malcolm's hand brushed against hers, Amina didn't pull away. Instead, she laced her fingers with his, surprised by how right it felt. I have a confession, Malcolm said as they paused on a pedestrian bridge. Amina tensed. What now? I've been taking cooking classes, he admitted, looking almost embarrassed. After working with you at the charity gala, I realized I've never made a meal for myself in my life. It seemed pathetic. Amina laughed, relieved. And how's that going? Terribly, Malcolm said with a grin. I nearly burned down my kitchen trying to make pasta, but I'm learning. Maybe I could give you a lesson sometime, Amina offered. Malcolm's eyes lit up. I'd like that. As they continued walking, a comfortable silence fell between them. At Amina's door later that night, Malcolm made no move to kiss her, respecting the fragile new beginning they'd established. Thank you for tonight, he said simply, for giving me another chance. Amina smiled. Good night, Malcolm. Inside, Amina found herself humming as she placed the leather recipe book on her kitchen counter. Despite her best intentions, despite all the reasons to guard her heart, something was happening, something that both thrilled and terrified her. Over the next 2 weeks, Malcolm and Amina cautiously rebuilt what had been broken. He showed up at her kitchen one Sunday afternoon for his promised cooking lesson, laughing as she tried to teach him the basics of knife skills. How have you survived this long without knowing how to chop an onion? She teased. Personal chefs, he admitted sheepishly, and a lot of takeout. They fell into an easy rhythm together, Malcolm following Amina's instructions with the same intensity he gave to his business deals. When they finally sat down to eat the simple pasta dish they'd created together, Malcolm looked at her with wonder. This is the first meal I've ever cooked, he realized, and it's actually edible. Don't sound so surprised, Amina laughed. You had an excellent teacher. Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them changed, charged with something neither could deny anymore. Amina, Malcolm said softly, I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air, honest and terrifying. Amina's heart raced, Before she could respond, Malcolm's phone rang. He ignored it, but it rang again immediately. "You should get that," Amina said, both relieved and disappointed by the interruption. Malcolm checked the screen and frowned. "It's Jessica. She wouldn't call twice unless it was important." He answered, listening intently, his expression growing increasingly grim. "When? How bad?" "I'll be right there." He hung up, his face pale. "My mother's had a heart attack. She's at Atlanta Memorial." Amina immediately stood, all other thoughts forgotten. "I'll drive you. You're in no state." At the hospital, they found Vivian in the ICU, pale but stable. The doctor assured them she would recover, but it had been a close call. "The next 24 hours are critical," he told them. "She needs rest and no stress." Malcolm sat by his mother's bed, holding her hand, looking more vulnerable than Amina had ever seen him. She brought him coffee, sat with him through the night, and held his hand when he finally broke down in the waiting room at dawn. "I can't lose her," he confessed, his voice breaking. "She's all the family I have left." "You won't lose her," Amina promised, pulling him close. "She's strong, like her son." When Vivian finally woke the next afternoon, her first words were to scold Malcolm for looking so worried, then to thank Amina for staying. "You're good for him," Vivian whispered, when Malcolm stepped out to speak with the doctor. "He needs someone who sees the real him, not the empire he's built." "I'm beginning to," Amina admitted. Later, as they left the hospital with Vivian stable and resting, Malcolm turned to Amina in the parking lot. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." Amina reached up and touched his face gently. "That's what you do when you care about someone." Malcolm leaned into her touch. "Before we were interrupted yesterday, I said something. I meant it, Amina. I'm falling in love with you, but I don't expect—" Amina silenced him with a soft kiss, her first move across the invisible boundary they'd maintained. When she pulled back, Malcolm looked stunned. "I'm falling for you too," she whispered, "despite all my better judgment." Malcolm pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with gentle reverence. "I promise I won't let you regret it." As they stood there in the hospital parking lot, Amina believed him. The man holding her now was not the arrogant millionaire from that podcast interview. He was someone new, or perhaps someone who had been buried all along beneath layers of expectations and fear. Across town, in the offices of City Style magazine, a reporter named Tyler Bennett, the same one who had interviewed Malcolm months ago, was looking at photos sent in by a tipster. They showed Malcolm Devereaux and a beautiful, curvy black woman in an intimate embrace outside Atlanta Memorial Hospital. The headline was already forming in his mind: "Millionaire's Change of Heart. The woman who changed Malcolm Devereaux's type." So the story that Malcolm and Amina thought was private was about to become very, very public. The morning sun streamed through Amina's kitchen window as she prepared breakfast, humming softly to herself. The past 2 weeks since Vivian's heart attack had brought unexpected changes. Malcolm had practically moved into her guest room to be closer to the hospital, and their morning routine had become something Amina looked forward to each day. "Something smells amazing," Malcolm said, entering the kitchen freshly showered, looking more relaxed than he had in the corporate world. "Just some simple breakfast," Amina replied, sliding a plate of perfectly golden French toast toward him. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years," Malcolm admitted, taking a seat at her small kitchen table. "Something about this place feels like home." Their eyes met, and the comfortable silence between them spoke volumes. They had fallen into a rhythm that felt natural, as if they'd known each other for years rather than months. "I'm visiting Mother this morning," Malcolm said between bites. "The doctors say she might be released by the weekend." "That's wonderful news," Amina replied, joining him at the table. "She's recovering so well." Malcolm reached across the table and took her hand. "She keeps asking when you're coming back to visit. I think she's more excited to see you than me these days." Amina laughed. "I've always liked your mother. She sees people for who they really are." "Like mother, like son," Malcolm said softly. "At least, I'm learning to." The moment was interrupted by Amina's phone buzzing insistently. She glanced at the screen. "It's Jasmine, again. That's the third call this morning." "You should answer," Malcolm suggested. "It might be important." Amina picked up the phone. "Jazz, what's so urgent?" "I told you I'd be at the kitchen by—" Her face paled as she listened to whatever Jasmine was saying. Malcolm watched with growing concern as Amina's hand tightened around the phone. "When? How bad?" She turned away from Malcolm, lowering her voice. "No, he doesn't know yet. Yes, I'll tell him. I'll be there soon." She hung up and stood frozen for a moment, her back to Malcolm. "Amina?" Malcolm rose from his chair. "What's wrong?" She turned slowly, her expression troubled. You need to see something. She picked up her tablet from the counter and pulled up the City Style magazine website. The headline blazed across the screen, Millionaire's Change of Heart, the woman who changed Malcolm Devereux's type. Below was a large photo of them embracing outside the hospital, followed by smaller photos of them walking hand in hand on the Beltline and having dinner at the Italian restaurant. Malcolm stared at the screen in shock. How did they get these? Keep reading, Amina said quietly. The article quoted Malcolm's infamous podcast comment about curvy black women not being his type, then spun a saccharine tale of redemption. Sources close to Devereux claim the real estate mogul has had a complete change of heart since meeting Amina Clark, owner of Divine Taste Catering. He's a different man now, our source reveals. He's fallen hard for exactly the type of woman he once dismissed. The piece went on to detail their first meeting at Vivian's birthday party, their business partnership, and their blossoming romance, painting Malcolm as a reformed man who'd seen the error of his ways. Malcolm struggled to find words, anger building in his voice. There's more, Amina said, taking back the tablet and scrolling down. The reporter is Tyler Bennett, the same one who did the podcast interview, Malcolm realized, and he quotes a source from Devereux Properties' PR department throughout the article. Malcolm's face darkened. Diane, even after I fired her. Jasmine says my phone has been ringing non-stop, reporters wanting comments, people asking if I'm the woman who changed Malcolm Devereux. Amina's voice cracked slightly. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Malcolm, being your redemption story. Malcolm ran a hand through his hair, frustration and regret evident in every line of his body. Amina, I swear I had nothing to do with this. After everything we've been through, you have to believe me. Amina looked at him for a long moment, studying his face. A month ago she might have walked away, assumed the worst. But now, she knew him better. I believe you, she said finally. But it doesn't change what's happening. Our private relationship is now public gossip. Malcolm took her hands in his. We'll handle this together. I'll call my lawyers, have them demand a retraction. That won't undo what's already out there, Amina interrupted gently. People have seen it. They're already calling the restaurant, leaving messages. What kind of messages? Malcolm asked, concern deepening. Amina sighed. Some supportive, some not so much. Apparently some of your fans think I'm using you for your money and influence. Malcolm's expression hardened. That's ridiculous. Welcome to my world, Amina said with a sad smile. Black woman dates wealthy white man. People always have opinions. Malcolm pulled her into his arms, holding her close. I'm so sorry, Amina. This is all because of my thoughtless comment months ago. If I had never said those words... But you did, Amina said, pulling back to look at him. And now we have to deal with the consequences. Malcolm's phone began ringing. He glanced at it and grimaced. Jessica, she's probably seen the article. You should answer, Amina encouraged. Your business might be affected too. As Malcolm took the call in the living room, Amina sat at the kitchen table, staring at the article again. The photos captured intimate moments she had thought were private. Seeing their relationship dissected for public consumption made her stomach churn. Malcolm returned, his expression grim. It's worse than we thought. Tyler Bennett is scheduled to appear on Atlanta Morning today to discuss the article. They're framing it as a heartwarming redemption story. There's nothing heartwarming about having our privacy invaded, Amina said bitterly. Malcolm knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. Amina, I need to ask you something important. Do you trust me, completely? She looked into his eyes, surprised by the intensity there. Yes, she realized. I do. Then I need you to come with me to the TV station. Right now. What? Why? Because I'm done letting other people control the narrative about us, Malcolm said firmly. It's time we told our own story. An hour later, they arrived at the Atlanta Morning studio, where a surprise producer greeted them. Mr. Devereux, we weren't expecting you. I understand Tyler Bennett is appearing on your show today to discuss his article about me and Ms. Clark, Malcolm interrupted. Yes, he's in makeup now. I want to join the segment. Both of us do. The producer's eyes widened, seeing the potential ratings boost. That would be... we'd need to adjust the schedule, but... Make it happen, Malcolm said, his tone leaving no room for argument. In the green room, Amina fidgeted nervously. Are you sure about this? Once we go on air, there's no taking it back. Malcolm took her hand. I'm sure. For too long, I've let other people define me. My aunt, my business partners, the press. I'm done with that. And I won't let them define you or us either. Before she could respond, a production assistant appeared. "We're ready for you. You'll be on after the commercial break." Moments later, they were seated on the bright set, across from the morning show hosts and Tyler Bennett, who looked both nervous and excited at this unexpected turn. "We have a surprise for our viewers this morning," the female host began. Joining us for this segment are Malcolm Devereaux himself and Amina Clark, the couple at the center of today's City Style magazine story. "Welcome to you both. Thank you for having us," Malcolm said smoothly, holding Amina's hand visibly for the cameras. "Tyler," the male host turned to the reporter, "you must be surprised to see the subjects of your article here in person." Bennett shifted uncomfortably. "It's unexpected, certainly." "I wanted to address your article directly," Malcolm said, his voice calm but firm, "because while parts of it are true, the narrative you've created is not our story to tell." "My sources," Bennett began. "Your sources," Malcolm interrupted, "include a former PR director who was fired for trying to exploit my personal relationship with Amina for publicity, the same thing you're doing now." Bennett paled slightly as Malcolm continued. "Yes, I said something inexcusable on your podcast months ago. Yes, I met Amina afterwards, and yes, we're in a relationship now. But our story isn't a neat redemption arc for public consumption. It's messy and real and private." Amina squeezed his hand, drawing strength from his words. "Ms. Clark," the female host turned to her, "how do you feel about being portrayed as the woman who changed Malcolm Devereaux?" Amina took a deep breath. "I'm not here to change anyone. That's not my job or my responsibility. Malcolm is on his own journey, just as I am. What we've found together isn't about types or preferences or changing each other. It's about two people connecting despite their differences, not because of them." "But you must admit," Bennett interjected, "it's quite a story. A man who publicly stated he doesn't date women who look like you, now clearly in love with you." "That's exactly the problem," Amina said firmly. "You're reducing our relationship to physical appearances, to types. The very thing Malcolm's original comment did. You're perpetuating the same harmful narrative while pretending to celebrate its undoing." The studio fell silent at her clear, powerful words. Malcolm leaned forward. "The truth is, I was wrong. Not just in what I said on that podcast, but in how I'd been living my life, judging people based on narrow standards that were never even my own. Meeting Amina didn't change my type. God, it made me realize how meaningless that concept is when you actually connect with someone's heart and mind." "So you're saying the article is false?" Bennett challenged. "I'm saying it's exploitative," Malcolm countered. "It uses private moments that were photographed without our consent to craft a narrative that isn't yours to tell, and it hurts Amina in the process, painting her as nothing more than a vehicle for my redemption." Amina felt a surge of love and pride as Malcolm defended not just their relationship, but her dignity. "What Amina and I have found together is real," Malcolm continued, his voice softening as he turned to look at her. "It's not a headline or a redemption story. It's just us learning and growing together." The female host, clearly moved, leaned forward. "So what would you like people to take away from your story?" Malcolm looked at Amina, silently asking if she wanted to answer. "That people can change," Amina said, finding her voice. "Not because someone else changes them, but because they choose to question their own assumptions. Malcolm did that hard work himself, and that true connection happens when you look beyond types and categories and really see someone for who they are. And that privacy matters," Malcolm added firmly. "Our relationship isn't public property just because I'm a public figure who made a mistake. We're asking for respect from the media and from everyone watching." As they left the studio an hour later, Amina felt strangely lighter. "That wasn't how I expected to spend my morning," she said with a small laugh. Malcolm wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You were amazing in there. I'm so proud to be with you." "We make a good team," Amina admitted, leaning into him. Their moment was interrupted by Malcolm's phone. He glanced at it and smiled. "It's Mother. She says we looked wonderful on TV and she's demanding we visit her immediately." At the hospital, Vivian was sitting up in bed, looking stronger than she had in days. "There are my TV stars," she greeted them warmly. "Mother, you shouldn't be watching morning television. You're supposed to be resting," Malcolm scolded gently. "Nonsense. How could I miss my son finally standing up for what really matters?" Vivian reached for Amina's hand. "And you, my dear, were eloquent and graceful as always." Amina smiled, genuinely fond of this strong woman. "How are you feeling?" "Better every day. In fact, the doctors say I can go home tomorrow." "That's wonderful news," Amina said. "Yes, But they insist I need someone to look after me for a few weeks, Vivian continued, a twinkle in her eye. Malcolm, darling, I was thinking perhaps you and Amina could stay at the house. There's plenty of room and Amina's cooking would surely aid my recovery. Malcolm and Amina exchanged amused glances, recognizing Vivian's transparent matchmaking. Mother, Amina has a business to run. Actually, Amina said thoughtfully, Divine Taste's kitchen is only 20 minutes from your mother's house, and Jasmine has been handling most of the day-to-day operations lately, while I've been distracted. Then it's settled, Vivian said triumphantly. You'll both stay just until I'm back on my feet. As they left the hospital, Malcolm looked at Amina curiously. You don't have to do this, you know. Mother will be fine with just me, or I can hire a nurse. I know, Amina said, but I want to. These past weeks staying with me, it's been nice having you around. I'm not ready for that to end yet. Malcolm stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Amina Clark, are you saying you want to live with me? Temporarily, she clarified with a smile. At your mother's very large house, with plenty of space for privacy. Still, Malcolm teased, it's a big step. Are you sure you're ready for that? Especially after this morning's media circus? Amina reached up and touched his face gently. What I realized this morning is that I'm not afraid of people knowing we're together. I'm just afraid of them misunderstanding what we are to each other. But you set that straight today. You stood up for me, for us. I always will, Malcolm promised. The next 3 weeks at the Devereux mansion created a new routine. Amina would leave early for her kitchen, returning in the afternoon to prepare dinner for the three of them. Malcolm split his time between the house and his office, gradually returning to work, but making sure to be home each evening. Vivian recovered steadily, regaining her strength and energy. She delighted in watching Malcolm and Amina together, seeing how naturally they moved around each other, how their initial wariness had transformed into deep trust and affection. One evening, as Amina prepared dinner, Malcolm joined her in the kitchen, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she stirred a pot of her grandmother's gumbo. I have news, he said, kissing her cheek. Good news or bad news? Amina asked, leaning back against him. Good, I think. So I've been looking at that building on Auburn Avenue, the old bakery. Amina nodded. She knew the place, a beautiful historic building that had sat empty for years. I bought it today, Malcolm continued, and I'd like to donate it to a new non-profit organization dedicated to teaching culinary skills to underprivileged youth. Amina turned in his arms, spatula still in hand. Malcolm, what are you saying? I'm saying your dream of opening a cooking school. It doesn't have to wait. The building is perfect. Lots of space for kitchen stations, a large dining area, even a small garden in the back for growing herbs and vegetables. Amina's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll run it, Malcolm urged. The Amina Clark Culinary Academy has a nice ring to it, don't you think? It's too much, Malcolm. It's not charity, he said quickly. It's an investment in you and your vision. I believe in what you want to create, Amina. I've seen how food changed your life, how you use it to bring people together. This is just me providing the space for you to share that gift with more people. Amina set down the spatula and wrapped her arms around his neck. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for this, but for seeing me, really seeing me. Always, Malcolm promised, before capturing her lips in a tender kiss. From the doorway, Vivian watched them with a satisfied smile before quietly slipping away, giving them their moment. 6 months later, the Amina Clark Culinary Academy opened its doors. The historic building had been beautifully restored, with state-of-the-art kitchen equipment alongside preserved architectural details. The first class of 20 teenagers from Atlanta's most underserved neighborhoods began their culinary journey under Amina's guidance. On opening day, Malcolm stood proudly beside Amina as she cut the ribbon, surrounded by local officials, community leaders, and the beaming faces of her first students. This is just the beginning, Amina told the gathered crowd. Food has the power to transform lives, to create community, to preserve heritage. Every student who walks through these doors will learn not just how to cook, but how to nourish themselves and others. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution covered the event with a headline that made Amina smile. Divine Taste Owner expands vision. Culinary Academy serves up opportunity. There was no mention of Malcolm's podcast comment, no reference to their relationship as a redemption story, just recognition of Amina's accomplishment on its own merits. Later that evening, as they walked through the empty academy after everyone had gone, Malcolm took Amina's hand. Are you happy? He asked simply. Incredibly, she answered, looking around at the space that had once been just a dream. I still can't believe this is real. Believe it, Malcolm said. You've earned this, Amina. Every bit of it. They stopped in the center of the main kitchen, where 20 workstations stood ready for the next day's class. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Malcolm said, suddenly looking nervous, an expression Amina rarely saw on his confident face. What is it? Malcolm reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Amina's breath caught as he dropped to one knee. Amina Clark, you walked into my life and turned it upside down in the best possible way. You challenged me. You pushed me to be better. You showed me what real love looks like. He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. Will you marry me? Tears filled Amina's eyes as she looked at the man before her, so different from the arrogant millionaire she'd first met, yet fundamentally the same person who had finally found his way. Yes, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. As Malcolm slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, Amina thought about their journey, from a thoughtless comment on a podcast to this moment of pure joy and commitment. It hadn't been easy or straightforward. There had been hurt and misunderstandings, public scrutiny and private doubts, but through it all, they had found something real, something that transcended types and preferences and public perception. They had found each other, not despite their differences, but because they had both been brave enough to look beyond them. I love you, Malcolm Devereux, Amina said against his lips. And I love you, Amina Clark, he replied. Every beautiful, brilliant, curvy inch of you. She laughed, smacking his arm playfully. You're never going to let me forget that first impression, are you? Never, Malcolm agreed with a grin, because it reminds me every day how wrong I was, and how lucky I am that you gave me the chance to learn better. As they left the academy hand in hand, their future stretched before them. Not a perfect fairy tale, but something better, a real love story, with all its complexities and challenges and joys, a story that was entirely their own. 1 year later, Vivian Devereux sat in the front row at her son's wedding, dabbing at her eyes as Amina walked down the aisle in a gown that celebrated every curve of her beautiful body. Behind the bride walked 20 teenagers in chef's whites, the first graduating class of the Amina Clark Culinary Academy, all of whom had insisted on catering the reception. As Malcolm and Amina exchanged vows beneath an arch of flowers, Vivian thought about how far they had come. Her son, once so closed off and judgmental, now looking at his bride with such open adoration, and Amina, once so wary of being someone's redemption story, now confidently writing her own happy ending. When Malcolm kissed his bride, the applause was deafening, not because a millionaire had married a curvy black woman, though many of the gossip columns would surely frame it that way, but because two people who truly saw and loved each other had found their way home, and in the end that was the only story that mattered.